When the angels had returned to heaven, the shepherds said to each other, "Let's go to Bethlehem. Let's see this thing that has happened, which the Lord has told us about." Luke 2:15. Sometimes we've heard the Christmas story so many times, and we know it so well, it's really hard to think about what that first Christmas was really like. But just think about those dumbfounded shepherds and what they've been through. First, out of nowhere, and on an ordinary night of washing sheep, an angel appears, and the glory of the Lord, which must have been an unbearable brightness, surrounded the angel. The angel told them the good news that the Savior had been born and how to find the long-promised baby. Then an innumerable company of angels appeared. Then the angels sang. The shepherds got to preview a heavenly anthem. And then it was over. I've often wondered what that moment was like when the angels returned to heaven. We can imagine the shepherds' utter amazement at the heavenly music and the appearance of all those angels. But when they disappeared as quickly as they had come, and they were surrounded by sheep and the familiar countryside in the night, what was that like? They had options. After the angels left, they could have stayed where they were and talked about what they just witnessed, compared observations, discussed whether or not to tell anyone. People might think they're crazy. They could have basked in the joyful afterglow of that incredible music. I could see myself doing any of those things. But the shepherds said, "Let's go." And Luke says they hurried. They found the baby, just as the angel had told them, and they spread the good news of what happened all over the town. God had kept his promise to the shepherds, both the promise from ancient times to the Jewish people and the promise that had been made earlier that very night, that they would find a Savior in a specific location if only they would go look for him. It's interesting that the angel didn't lead the shepherds to baby Jesus, Mary and Joseph, and the angel gave them enough information so they could be sure they had found him, but they had to search themselves. The Bible doesn't tell us what they did with the sheep. Did they leave one unfortunate fellow back to watch the sheep while the rest of them went in search? Or did they drive all the sheep through the roads and alleys of Bethlehem? The Bible doesn't say, but we know that they didn't let the excuse of everyday work stop them from the search. Have you ever had a mountaintop spiritual experience, but then when it was over, you wondered whether it was even real? When the veil between this earth and the heavenly dimension is lifted for a bit, do we welcome it and follow where it leads? Or do we dismiss it and busy ourselves with the mundane tasks of life until we aren't even really sure that the miraculous ever happened? Last December, we moved from Cincinnati, Ohio to Palm Bay, Florida. Even though we had planned it and been working on it for a full year and had talked about it a long time before that, all sorts of things went wrong. I won't go into all the details, but just think: Florida power and light hookup delayed by 2 hurricanes in November, appraisals, mortgages, underwriting documents. Everyone at our lender that we needed help from was on vacation for the holidays. And there's a strange new demand that when you close on a house, you have to wire the money. We are not people who wire money. The last house we purchased was more than 30 years ago, and you just wrote a check. All this was news that threatened to put us in danger of default, and we kept getting emails and texts, and it was very scary. Meanwhile, I was out of vacation days, and I was working remotely every day in the hotel on the hotel Wi-Fi prior to our closing. While my husband, John, well, I don't really know what he did while I worked. Part of the time I know he walked around and made friends with the local raccoons behind the strip mall near the hotel, and he was nearly losing his mind with a weird combination of boredom and anxiety. He had to deal with all the issues I didn't. At least I had work to keep my mind off of it. It was not the most stressful time in our 42 plus years of marriage, because we've been through a lot, but it was up there. Anyway, one night during the week before we closed, everything just crashed down on us mentally. It was a very long, dark night, figuratively and literally. It's hard to describe how desperate we felt. I prayed as hard as I ever have, calling on the Lord and hanging on to those promises in the Bible. All who call on the name of the Lord will be saved. My husband and I are believers, so we're already saved from the power of sin and death, but I believe that that also means to be saved physically and practically for living this life. After that night, some things fell together over the next few days in ways that were truly miraculous. It was not our strength or wisdom or cleverness, because we were out of all that. It was nothing short of a miracle. And our angel came in the form of a person at our lender who reached out to help us and did all kinds of things that were not at all part of his job. Then, when it was all over, we moved into our house a few days before Christmas. I felt a little like the shepherds might have felt after their lives went back to normal. I could just explain that night away, keep it a personal experience, keep busy with work, and let it go. Ascribe our miraculous deliverance and the comfort we felt to coincidence. But I can't. I will hang on to the memory of that deliverance forever, as I have other times when I've seen the hand of God intervene in ordinary life. I believe when we come to the end of ourselves, we turn to God and our faith will grow. I will keep praying for others because my faith has grown stronger through this experience. Not every prayer is answered the way we want, but God hears every prayer, and the Bible tells us He is near to all who call on Him. This Christmas, let's be like the shepherds. Let's not get so busy that we won't drop everything when the miraculous intervenes. Let's share the good news that God is a God of everlasting love and limitless power. Nothing is too hard for the Lord. Let's not discount the glimpses we have of God's personal revelation. Let's not overanalyze it or let the memory fade. Let's act on it and do what God is moving us to do this Advent season and always. Thank you and Merry Christmas.